We start with the crime incident in the UK. The wife and two daughters of the BBC racing commentator John Hunt have been named as the victims of a crossbow attack in Hertfordshire. Police say that it was a targeted incident and a major search is now underway for the 26-year-old suspect, Kyle Clifford. In a statement, Chief Superintendent John Simpson addressed the man directly.
Kyle, if you're seeing or hearing this, please make contact with the police via 999. Beyond the immediate search operation, a major crime inquiry has been launched, and we also appeal to the public for any information in relation to the incident. This incident will be, of course, of concern to local residents. Additional local officers will be in the area today, so please do speak to them if you need to.
The advice for anyone who sees the suspect is to call the police and not to approach him. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is being kept fully updated. These people living in Bushey, where the killings happened, spoke to us.
These sort of things happen all over the place, but yeah, when it's close to home, then it is frightening and well, it's troubling. But I'm hoping that it is just a one-off.
It was like an explosion in the street of police cars and ambulances, and we didn't know what was going on, me or the neighbour, we didn't have a clue. Suddenly you noticed there was police outside in black uniform with sort of semi-automatic guns walking around. It's been a bit of a shock because it's a really residential area. You know, nothing much ever goes on round here at all, apart from people going back and forwards to work.
Well, let's speak to James Cracknell, who's the editor of the Enfield Dispatch. And James, first of all, tell us, what do we really know about this case?
Hi, Adam. Yes, well, it's very worrying because the manhunt has been going on now for probably close to 20 hours since this incident happened, and similar to what the residents in Bushey were saying, in Enfield, we've had similar sort of things happening where we've had armed police, we've had police helicopters in the skies above Enfield pretty much all day.
Because that's where the suspect lives. Is that right, Carl Clifford lives?
Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified. So yeah, so Bushey is obviously where the incident took place, but Enfield is where the suspect lives. There's a street called Rendlesham Road where he lives, and that there were armed police there today. There's a park nearby where the police have been sort of stationed all day. So the belief must be that if he's not in Bushey, that he may have returned back to the Enfield area. We don't have any sort of confirmed sightings of him whatsoever. But I've been hearing from residents who are very, very worried, and schools in Enfield, schools are almost on lockdown. So although they're not closed, they've been told that they shouldn't let their pupils outside today. So it's pretty scary.
What is known about the suspect, Carl Clifford?
So he's 26 years old. He's a white man. He has a beard. He used to be in the military, apparently. I think that came out a couple of hours ago, that he has a history in the military, which might explain why he is perhaps good at being on the run, perhaps, if he has that kind of training. And really concerning about hearing about the weapons that he might have. This crossbow, pretty shocking weapon, not the kind of weapon you expect to be used. So yeah, just very concerning.
And quite unrelated, of course, but he actually has a brother who has been found guilty of murder and GBH in the past.
Yeah, completely unconnected. But yeah, I found that out earlier, that he had this brother, also from Enfield, who I think he sort of attacked someone on a moped who had damaged his car, and killed him, and was jailed for that about 6 years ago.
And what do we know about the victims, a mother and two daughters, related to a BBC racing commentator? What more do we know about them? I'm
not sure. I've only just been hearing that myself, that they're related to the BBC commentator. I mean, so obviously all the victims were known to each other, part of the same family. I believe there is a connection to the suspect, Carl Clifford. That there's a connection there, and they were killed in their own home.
Yeah, I was going to ask how we know that he's a suspect. I mean, obviously he's been named by the police.
So I believe that he was in a relationship with one of the daughters.
Okay, and just finally, crossbow crime. Have you had much of that on your patch?
Not at all. No, no. This is completely. I mean, this is pretty unheard of. We did have an incident 2 days ago where there was a machete attack in Pop Foster's, which is another part of Enfield. So it's not been a great week, and I think the whole borough is feeling a little bit on edge at the moment.
James Cracknell, thank you very much indeed.
The 3 women murdered in Bushey in Hertfordshire have been named as Carol, Hannah and Louise Hunt. Carol was married to the BBC racing commentator John Hunt. They were killed yesterday evening, and police are looking for 26-year-old Kyle Clifford. They are referring to this as a targeted incident. This is Chief Superintendent Simpson. He says the police should not approach Kyle Clifford.
The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used.
Well, these people who live in Bushey in Hertfordshire told our reporter what they thought about this incident.
These sort of things happen all over the place, but yeah, when it's close to home, then it does. It is frightening and. Well, it's troubling, but I'm hoping that it is just a one-off.
It was like an explosion in the street of police cars and ambulances, and we didn't know what was going on, me or the neighbour, we had never a clue. Suddenly you notice there was police outside in black uniform with sort of semi-automatic guns walking around. It's been a bit of a shock because it's a really residential area. You know, nothing much ever goes on round here at all, apart from people going back and forwards to work.
Well, let's talk to our reporter Emma Cohen, who's in Bushey in Hertfordshire. Emma, it's pretty obvious that the locals are going to be really shocked by this, but can you tell us, first of all, have there been any sightings at all of the man the police are looking for, Kyle Clifford?
Good afternoon. At the moment, we don't believe that there have been. The search for Kyle Clifford began at 7 o'clock last night and is continuing, obviously, well into today. It's 3:15. That search has been ongoing for a long time already. We've also been told that armed officers and specialist search teams are deployed and involved in that search.
Can you tell us a little bit about the area for people who don't know Bushey in Hertfordshire? What is it like?
Well, I'm currently stood on Ashling Close, where the incident took place last night, and what I can tell you is that it's just a really quiet residential street. All the residents that we have been speaking to today have been saying how shocked they are and just how something like this attack is shocking and could never have believed to have happened on their street. We've been told it's a very affluent area, and it's a residential street and very quiet.
Now, the people involved here are thought to be, well, we know that Carol Hunt was married to BBC racing commentator John Hunt, and it's their two of their daughters, I should say, Hannah and Louise, who've lost their lives in this incident. I think John Hunt, I don't know him personally, but I do know him to be a highly respected broadcaster, a man with many friends. This is absolutely horrific, isn't it?
Exactly. I think, it's really going to shock the world, the media world, and obviously people in the area and further afield. As you mentioned, the two daughters of BBC racing commentator John Hunt were killed on Ashling Close last night. They've been named as 25-year-old Louise Hunt and 28-year-old Hannah Hunt. The third woman killed, as we've already mentioned, was Mr. Hunt's wife, Carol, who's aged 61. Mr. Hunt is understood to have been working last night in Linkfield, where he'd been commentating as well, so he was at work.
Your reaction to the news and what's happened? Well, I can't believe it. I got a call actually from Rishi Persad, who works in racing and has obviously been down at Wimbledon when I had been for the first 8 days of the championship. And I just couldn't believe it. And the sense of shock that just hit all of us in the racing community, in and other areas as well, that within his colleagues at the BBC racing at the races. It was just horrendous, because he is one of the nicest people you could ever imagine. He has got time for everybody. He's supremely talented as a commentator. There's no two ways about it. If you hear his racing commentaries or his swimming commentaries that he does, you know just how good he is. But he's a committed family man. He just got on with his life, but he always seemed to have time for everybody. And that is why that something like this, which is so horrendous that nobody can comprehend, because you just don't think it would happen to somebody like John Hunt's family, because they seemed were very happy, and clearly they were, but obviously it was shattered in the most horrendous circumstances. And my heart goes out to John Hunt and all his close family, his one other daughter who survived as well, but wasn't involved in the incident. My heart bleeds for them, because I can't just imagine what they're going through. It's easy for us to sort of say, yes, we feel sorry for them, but actually it's more than that. You just don't know how they can recover from something so horrendous. Because John had been working at Linkfield commentating on Tuesday, driving home, probably like many of us, was hoping to sit down. He loved his football. Well, he loves his football. He's a West Ham fan. I'll forgive him for that. But he went back to I'm sure was going to watch the first semi-final, and yet his life has now changed sort of, dramatically in the most horrendous circumstances. And my sympathy goes out to him with all my heart, because I just cannot believe that something like this has happened to his family. It has left us all stunned.
And just finally, Rupert, he got into the business a bit late, didn't he? And his wife got him into it.
Yes, he started out as a policeman, but actually was all his family, I know, were always interested in racing. And I think she encouraged him, said there was an advert in a paper, have a go. And then he went to work, and we both did actually similar times, go and work for Ladbrokes for providing coverage in their betting shop service. But then he got into race commentary. We both actually joined the racing channel, which was the first of the racing services, at about the same time. But he started out as a policeman, encouraged by his wife to have a go. And it was the best decision he ever made, because, as you know, his broadcasting career has reached heights. He's, respected by all and sundry. And as I say, he's due to go to the Olympics to cover the swimming for 5 Live. And, I hope he somehow might find a way to go. But I understand if he just has to take so much time to regroup, because it is the most distressing thing that I personally have been involved with anyone like that. And my heart bleeds for the Hunt family, because this guy is one of the nicest people you would ever want to meet.
Rupert, so glad that you took the time to talk to us about that. Thank you for joining us. That's Rupert Bell, their racing correspondent for TalkSport. Known John Hunt for 30 years, only in the business because his wife encouraged him to do it. His wife and their 2 daughters have been killed. And this question, we talked about this before, as we about swords, and why do we have swords in this country? Why would we have crossbows in this country? And there'll be maybe some people who say, well, I use crossbows for this innocent reason, but you don't need them. They're not necessary, are they? They shouldn't be easily available, you wouldn't have thought. And it must be possible to find ways to stop these things becoming available.
Absolutely. I mean, there is that. And then I don't know whether, it's a female thing, but been speaking to, women whose reaction to this is actually slightly different, in that it's very much about, we don't know all the circumstances at this point, but they're not looking for anyone else. They have a suspect who was known to the family. And it's that very familiar story of women dying in kind of domestic circumstances at the hands of men who are known to them. And it's actually really quite frightening.
It is. And once the criminal path is concluded, we can talk more about that, because I think that's really important, isn't it? That you have to be able to say why on earth things like this happen. And there is the weapon side of things, but there's also who's at the heart of this. And you can't talk about that until there is any form of prosecution and conviction. But at that point, it will need to be discussed.
Good afternoon. I'm Chief Superintendent John Simpson, Head of Local Policing for Hertfordshire Constabulary. Police were called to a property in Ashland Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used. If members of the public see Kyle Clifford, they urge not to approach him at any point and to dial 999 immediately. Kyle, if you're seeing or hearing this, please make contact with the police via 999. Beyond the immediate search operation, a major crime inquiry has been launched, and we also appeal to the public for any information in relation to the incident. This incident will be, of course, of concern to local residents. Additional local officers will be in the area today, so please do speak to them if you need to. You can report information online at hearts.police.uk/report, via web chat at hearts.police.uk/contact, or call 101 quoting Op Inforna. Alternatively, you can stay 100% anonymous by contacting the independent charity Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 or via their untraceable online form at crimestoppers-uk.org. Thank you.
Let's start with this really. It's utterly horrific, the details of what happened yesterday, and the police arrested a suspect at 4 p.m. yesterday, this former soldier who's now currently being held over a triple crossbow murder. And you wonder, Matthew, it is clearly very easy to pick up a weapon like that.
Well, this is what the Home Secretary is going to have to look into. I think there has been some research being done already on the question of whether these weapons are, because that's what they can be used for, sadly and tragically, whether they can be bought too easily. So I'm sure Yvette Cooper will report back to us on that in the not too distant future. It seems extraordinary that someone can use that in a civilian context. It was an unbelievable story. It's the sort of story that, you know, unites the country in grief and horror and outrage, and before you know what's going on, I'm sure dads and wives around the country were alerting their family members, because it's just something that is far, far, far too close to home. It happened inside a home, and we know just what a massive, massive issue domestic violence is in this country, which isn't to say that's what happened in this case. And obviously we've got to be really careful in what we say, but it was a horrifying news story. And indeed it was, you know, if it's possible to be more poignant, it was perhaps particularly extraordinary that it happened on a day where the country ended up by uniting in celebration because of the football that we've just talking about. It was the worlds of news and football colliding. And actually, Michael Owen, the former England striker, he put up on X, on Twitter last night, saying, and while the country celebrates, spare a thought for John Hunt. I can't remember feeling so utterly horrified in years. Those poor girls, truly horrific. And John Hunt, whose wife and daughters were killed, is, as you know, a BBC and I think for other outlets as well, racing commentator. Michael Owen himself loves racing. I think he trains horses. So it's just the worst possible story. And I think as a father myself, but you don't have to be a dad, you just cannot imagine what this poor man is going through, and also his surviving daughter.
Yeah, it is just beyond belief. I mean, it begs the question whether there needs to be sort of a review on the law about crossbow ownership.
I think that, as I say, I think that according to the Home Office, and I may be wrong about this, but from what I was reading yesterday, I think there has been some sort of review into it that's been ongoing. And as I say, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, I mean, only 3 or 4 or 5 days into the job, she's going to have to look at that very quickly.
Yeah, you wonder though if someone who's motivated to do something like that, whether that would actually stop behaviour like that. Very difficult to work out the root cause of why that happened. As we said, utterly horrific.
Let's turn our attention to some other news now. And a church vigil is taking place in Bushey in Hertfordshire for the 3 women who died in a crossbow attack on Tuesday. Carol Hunt was the wife of the BBC 5 Live racing commentator John Hunt. She was found fatally injured alongside their daughters Hannah and Louise. 26-year-old suspect Carl Clifford has been detained by police. David Brown is the chief news correspondent at The Times, who was at that church vigil in Bushey and joins us now. David, just bring us up to date.
Yeah, hello, Matt. I think Father David Stevenson, the rector of Bushey, has rather summed up the feeling here. He said that the community needs to understand how such a cruel and inhumane thing could take place in our community, our leafy green Hertfordshire. And I think that sums up the feeling here. Many of the friends of the Hunt family here, they talk about these beautiful souls, this family that was really well known, Matt. Louise, local dog groomer, everyone you see with a dog seems to know her. Hannah, a very highly regarded beauty therapist. The number of young women that were in church, clearly very emotional, and have visited the cordon outside their detached house where they were murdered on Tuesday. It's really very emotive.
So that's the vigil taking place there, clearly for a popular family. What's happening? What's the latest on the police investigation, David?
Yeah, it's focusing on the man that they'd issued the public appeal for, Carl Clifford. Residents, neighbours of the house have been warned on Tuesday night, don't come out. There's a man with a crossbow. We know that he was then arrested late yesterday afternoon, very close to his own home in Enfield, North London. He was found in a cemetery, having suffered injuries, which we believe to be self-inflicted. There was no police. The police didn't open fire or anything like that. He's still being treated and will be questioned, and then we'll see where that goes.
David, good to speak to you. Thanks for joining us today. David Brown, the chief news correspondent of The Times, at the church vigil in Bushey.
Now, a memorial service has been held in Bushey in Hertfordshire for Carol, Hannah and Louise Hunt, who were killed in a crossbow attack. Rector David Stevenson paid this tribute.
We come today together to mourn the tragic loss of 3 members of our community. Carol, Hannah and Louise, represented here by these lights that burn by 3 roses, beautiful and fragrant, but taken from us cruelly in a way that we are still trying to understand.
That is the rector, David Stevenson. Now, they were the wife and 2 daughters of racing commentator John Hunt. And if you were watching the football last night or you were listening to the football last night, all of John Hunt's colleagues wanted to send him their thoughts. And I think that you'll agree it was definitely the right thing to do. And it was good to hear that so many people want to offer their support to the family at the moment. Now, 26-year-old Carl Clifford, the suspect who police apprehended last night, remains in hospital. And the Home Secretary is looking at whether tougher laws are needed on crossbow ownership. Let's talk now to Dan Hammond, news reporter at The Sun. Dan, what's the very latest that the police have said?
Hello. So, the latest we've seen from the police is a search which is ongoing at the family home of Carl Clifford in Enfield. We've seen forensics officers combing the scene, removing evidence, and we've also seen heightened police presence all around the Bushey area for the last 2 days. So, as things stand, we're waiting for a condition update from Clifford from hospital to see what action, if any, the police will take.
And from friends and family, obviously a very moving tribute being given there from the local vicar. But I know, and everybody can understand, that this would have been a close community, and so many people will have been affected by this, won't they?
Absolutely. You can see the shock in the people of the area. I've been talking to residents. I was there yesterday very early. I've been back there today. And people, you can just see the anguish on their faces when they realise that something so shocking has happened to somebody so close to where they live. There was a particularly poignant tribute left at the scene today on a bunch of flowers. A note said, "For the 3 beautiful souls who left us too early, wishing your onward journey be peaceful and full of love. To family and friends, I wish you all the strength in the world to come to terms with your tragic loss." And that from a local resident.
Sure. I know that there is very little that we can say about the details of the attack, nor would we want to. And obviously, as the police investigation continues and before anybody is formally charged, and after they're charged, in fact, if that happens, it is just legally inappropriate to do so. But do we know what might happen next?
Well, it all depends on the condition of the suspect, really. The police aren't looking for anybody else in this investigation, and we're aware of the details that have been reported. When the suspect is in a fit state, we can only assume that he will be questioned by police, and if the evidence is strong enough, he'll be charged and brought before magistrates' court the following day. And at that point, we'll hear some more of the details that he is alleged to have done.
The detained suspect, Kyle Clifford, remains in hospital in a serious condition. Joining us now is Anna Willis. She's the senior multimedia reporter at My London and has been covering the story at the scene. Good afternoon to you, Anna.
Good afternoon, Adam.
What's the latest that we know about this crime?
I think the latest is, as you say, Kyle Clifford, who is the main suspect in this case, remains in hospital after being detained in Enfield at a cemetery yesterday. At present, he has not been arrested and still has not talked to police. So we are currently awaiting more information on that.
He's obviously in a pretty, bad way, pretty injured if he can't really talk or react with the police.
Yeah, I wasn't in Enfield, but I understand that there were lots of paramedics needed at the scene yesterday when they did find him in Enfield.
And any idea how he got injured?
No, we don't know at this stage. I don't know anything. The police hasn't confirmed anything, so I can't speculate, I'm afraid.
You've been speaking to people in the community, some of them who knew the victims. What have they been telling you?
I mean, they've been saying just how lovely a family the Hunt family was. I was on the road just off Ashling Close today, which still remains cordoned off. And Betty, who's 91, who lives in the house right opposite Ashling Close, told us that during the pandemic, John would knock on her door and offer to go to the supermarket and check that she had enough food. We were also hearing from people who went to Louise's dog grooming service and were describing her as a lovely, quiet, gentle girl who loved dogs. Just real sadness and heartbreak in the community.
And John, presumably, or maybe not, did he attend the memorial service? What's he doing now?
I have to say, I don't know. I wasn't able to attend the service this morning. I only arrived afterwards, but so I can't say where he's been at the moment, I'm afraid.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
And if you were watching the football last night or you were listening to the football last night, all of John Hunt's colleagues wanted to send him their thoughts. And I think that you'll agree it was definitely the right thing to do. And it was good to hear that so many people want to offer their support to the family at the moment. Now, 26-year-old Carl Clifford, the suspect who police apprehended last night, remains in hospital. And the Home Secretary is looking at whether tougher laws are needed on crossbow ownership. Let's talk now to Dan Hammond, news reporter at The Sun. Dan, what's the very latest that the police have said?
Hello. So, latest we've seen from the police is a search which is ongoing at the family home of Carl Clifford in Enfield. We've seen forensics officers combing the scene, removing evidence, and we've also seen heightened police presence all around the Bushey area for the last 2 days. So, as things stand, we're waiting for a condition update from Clifford from hospital to see what action, if any, the police will take.
And from friends and family, obviously a very moving tribute being given there from the local vicar. But I know, and everybody can understand, that this would have been a close community and so many people will have been affected by this, won't they?
Absolutely. You can see the shock in the people of the area. I've been talking to residents. I was there yesterday very early. I've been back there today. And people, you can just see the anguish on their faces when they realise that something so shocking has happened to somebody so close to where they live. There was a particularly poignant tribute left at the scene to down a bunch of flowers. A note said, "For the 3 beautiful souls who left us too early, wishing your onward journey be peaceful and full of love. To family and friends, I wish you all the strength in the world to come to terms with your tragic loss." And that from a local resident.
Sure. I know that there is very little that we can say about the details of the attack, nor would we want to. And obviously, as the police investigation continues and before anybody is formally charged, and after they're charged, in fact, if that happens, it is just legally inappropriate to do so. But do we know what might happen next?
Well, it all depends on the condition of the suspect, really. The police aren't looking for anybody else in this investigation, and we're aware of the details that have been reported. When the suspect is in a fit state, we can only assume that he will be questioned by police, and if the evidence is strong enough, he'll be charged and brought before magistrates' court the following day. And at that point, we'll hear some more of the details that he is alleged to have done.
Good afternoon. I'm Chief Superintendent John Simpson. Police were called to a property in Ashland Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident. We have extensive police resources deployed to various locations in North London and also the Bushey area of Hertfordshire. The manhunt also involves armed police officers and specialist search teams responding at pace in the wake of what has been an horrific incident, involving what is currently believed to be a crossbow, but other weapons may also have been used.
Well, that's really the terrible thing, and this is not something that happens in Bushey. We've can't remember a murder in our rather quiet neck of the woods. So terrible shock, and our sympathies and prayers and thoughts with the families of the 3 women. That really is a terrible thing to happen to anybody, and I gather they're all from the same family, which obviously makes it even more tragic. And we'll do everything we can as the local council to add our source of comfort to where we can.